let me just share my screen. Can you guys just tell me if you can see my screen? If I go like this. Perfect. I'm going to move us up here. Okay, amazing. And then I'm just going to make you guys smaller and I'm going to get started. Okay. And then if people come in through the waiting room, I can let them in. But okay, good morning, guys. Welcome. Thank you guys for joining on live. I really appreciate it. I know sometimes it's hard to get on the live call. So everyone watching the recording and everyone still making their way into the room, thank you so much. Okay. Welcome to Food Fundamentals. So this is going to be a masterclass today based on all things food. We're going to be talking about bringing food back to its simplest form and bringing it back to a way of eating and structuring our nutrition that makes it really easy and simple and convenient and efficient without having the complication and the confusion that we often all feel. Okay. So essentially today I'm going to run through the way that I teach my clients to eat. I'm going to run through a little bit of the science. So I'm going to be more like in teacher mode, educating and all the things. And then we'll get into more of the energetic side behind food. Okay. So give me an emoji in the chat about how you are feeling today that expresses how you're feeling today, and we will get into it. Okay. So starting off with a few little logistics for the call. As more people come in, this will be relevant so they can wait. But notebook and pen, please, if you can have one on you, that would be incredible. Okay. Get amongst the chat. If I'm asking questions, feel free to respond in the chat, send emojis, whatever it might be. And then always just to have some discernment and keep an open mind. Now, this is something that is important because a lot of the time there's so many different methods and ways of eating that people can get very confused and it gets very complicated, and there can be a lot of judgment around different methods of eating. So remember that you've come to my masterclass today and you've enrolled in my masterclass for my way of eating, the way that I teach food and the way that I would encourage clients to teach and go about the way they eat food. So this is my method. I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that it gets a lot of success for myself and my clients. And I have a reason behind the things that I do. And you're going to understand that today. And I'm going to have explained that by the end of today. And hopefully you can have a little bit more discernment around this way of eating and why this may be optimal for you, depending on who you are. But again, have discernment. You're grown humans. You can make your own decisions. Okay. And lastly, share. So if you want to share things from the masterclass, share it on your Instagram story, share it wherever. I would love to see it. And also share with me how you're feeling afterwards, what your key takeaways were, what you learned, all the things that are really important. Okay. So before we get into it, send me through an emoji how you're feeling, and then we will get started. How exciting. Okay. So getting into things, I'm first going to start with explaining a little bit about my journey with yo-yo dieting, my journey through different ways of eating, and the way that I have found has been best for myself and the reasons behind that. So essentially, when I look back to when I first started to have control around food and starting to adjust my diet and change the way I eat and all the things, I was very, very confused and overwhelmed. And I was very young and I was at a full-time ballet school. And I remember these girls around me, they were all older than me, and they started counting calories. And I didn't know what it was, but I just wanted to be like the older girls. And I thought, well, this is the right thing to do. And I remember something that kind of low-key traumatically happened at the time was a dance teacher at the school found out that we were all counting these calories. And she said to my best friend at the time, who was also my age, you can't do it. It's not healthy for you. It's not good for you, because my friend was like pretty thin, and said to me, oh, but Lucy, it's fine for you. And I remember at that time thinking, okay, one, that's fucked. But I remember thinking, oh, okay, so this is what I must do then to lose weight, because she must think I need to lose weight. So I thought that counting my calories was the be all end all way to do things. Okay. I thought it was the only way to do things. And little did I know that I would create an unhealthy relationship with it, only to then go back and create a healthier relationship with it. So from there, I was counting calories, but not really religiously. It was just this weird thing that I was just doing a bit of maths. Like, it didn't really mean much. It was a bit irrelevant. And I started just to slowly count my calories at literally age 12. And then I just got over it and stopped, because I didn't know what I was doing and it had no purpose or meaning. I was 12 years old. I literally, like, it had no purpose. So from there, it took me a few more years to get back into the dieting scene. And that is when I started to count calories again, but in a very toxic and unhealthy way. So at the time, I was struggling with an eating disorder, and this was fueling my eating disorder because I was constantly trying to restrict myself more and more and more. And the game that I played with myself was, okay, you had this many calories yesterday. How can we have less than this today? Can we have less than this today? How can we make this work? And it was very unhealthy and very controlling. Okay. And this is where calories and calorie counting gets a really bad rap. And there's often this huge misconception that it's toxic for everyone. And I truly fundamentally believe that it's not toxic for everyone. It just depends on where your headspace is at the time and your intentionality behind tracking the calories. If you're doing it from a place of, I need to be as small as possible, of course, it's going to be toxic. Anything you're going to do regarding food in that moment is going to be toxic. Okay. So I got into a really bad relationship with counting calories, and I made it very, very controlling, very, very rigid, very restrictive, because it was fueled by my eating disorder. So I was not in the right place to be doing it at the time. Hence why if I had a disordered eating client, I would never have them count calories ever. Okay. Well, at the start. So from there, then I went into recovery and I began to eat more and more and more and more. And then I went on this 5-year journey of trying every diet under the fucking sun, essentially. I tried everything. And that is what yo-yo dieting is. It's swinging from one diet to the other, trying to do all these different diets when really none of it is good for your body, none of it is healthy. But all I was doing was either putting myself in a restrictive, like a calorie deficit or a calorie surplus. So at the end of the day, none of the diets worked. It was just my balance of energy that was working. So I went from keto diet, I was paleo, I was vegan, I was raw vegan, I was fruitarian, I was detox only. Like I did everything, intermittent fasting, you name it. I did everything, every single diet. And what I found was it created this mental confusion, noise, and overwhelm all the time. I was constantly learning about food, trying to understand food, trying to understand different diets, seeing what was the best, listening to podcasts, listening to things. I was just all about it. And it became this obsession, and I couldn't stop thinking about food all the time. And it was like I didn't know what food was anymore. And I'd overcomplicated it so much with all this noise that I just was so lost. Okay. The only way I could remove that noise from myself was to strip back to the one thing that was working, which was the energy balance. Okay. Being keto or being raw vegan didn't help me create the body I wanted. It was the fact that I was in either a calorie deficit, a maintenance, or a surplus that was doing it. Okay. So what I had to understand was that it was none of these diets that were getting me from A to B. Maybe some made me feel a little healthier than others. But once I actually had consistency with my food and just ate the same sort of shit and did the same sort of things and kept it simple and real, that's when I started to feel really good in myself, and I reduced the noise in here mentally. So this is something that happens with my clients as well. A lot of the time they'll come to me at the start and they'll have all these different diets. They'll go, oh, but I thought this was better. And I thought this was better. And isn't this bad for you? And isn't carbs bad? And isn't this? And I go, whoa, bring it the fuck down. Let's reduce the noise a little bit. Let's take it back to basics. And that is what I'm going to be teaching you guys today, is how to bring your food back to basics and stop overcomplicating it in order to keep things simple, effective, and efficient. Okay. So moving on from that, I'm just going to check. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay, perfect. Perfect. Sorry, I just had to check that. I am coming back. Okay, incredible. So at the end of the day, our body and our brain have one desire, and that's safety. We need a roof over our head, food, water, love. That's what we need. We need safety. Okay. What happens with food is when we start to overcomplicate things and we get into this space of really overwhelming it and making it more than it is and making it mean something, we end up taking ourselves further from safety and more into confusion and complication and overwhelm. Okay. Then our body does not know what to expect. Our body wants to know, I get food at this time of day. Our body wants to know, I digest these foods best and I get to have these. Our body wants to know, these are the times, this is what I eat, this is how I digest it, this is the energy it gives me, this is how I sleep, da 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 da. Our body wants safety. It feels very unsafe for our body to constantly be jumping up and down with what we are eating, because we're trying to put our body under stress all the time. Essentially, we are putting our body under stress all the time. When we are changing everything that's going into it, how can we expect our body not to respond in a negative way? Okay. So at the end of the day, what we must come back to when simplifying our diet and refining the way we eat is simplicity, consistency, and predictability. Keeping our food simple food sources, simple times of day, a simple way of eating and approaching food. Firstly, consistency, doing the same things over time to get a result. Being consistent, not having one thing for 2 days and being really good and then going crazy the next day and wondering why our digestion is off. Consistency and predictability. Our body wants to predict what is coming in, what is going out, how it makes us feel, the energy, the amount of food, the lack of, our body needs that predictability in order to feel safe and secure. And we essentially can't do anything without feeling safe and secure. So why would we expect our body to get results, to feel good, to thrive, for us to be energized, for us to be happy if we don't have these pillars in place? Okay. So an example of a way, I'm getting some coconut water, hang on. An example of a way where the body would feel very, very unsafe is if, let's say, you had a very chaotic eating schedule and the way you ate was chaotic. Okay. So an example of this, let's say you wake up and you're like, oh my goodness, like, I don't even know what to eat. Firstly, your body's in stress. It's like, do we even have groceries? Is the toast moldy? Like, I don't fucking know. Do we even have coffee? Like, oh my God. And you're instantly in this overwhelm towards food and towards what you're putting in your body in the day. That is never going to be healthy. How are we creating safety and consistency in your body the first thing in the morning? We're not. We're creating discomfort. And we're creating this dysregulation in your whole nervous system. So firstly, you go and grab something, you're rushing to eat it, you're running out the door, you're eating a piece of toast. It's not even like good quality toast. And then you're drinking a coffee and it's like all chaos. Then you realize you haven't even got lunch for the day at work or school. So you're like, oh my gosh, I need to buy something. Or you've packed a random piece, like sandwich with random something in it. And it's all random, and grabbed a piece of fruit, thrown it in your bag and hope to have that. How is that simple? No, it's all complicated and confusing because you don't know what you're doing. It's not consistent because you're having a different thing every day based on what's available to you or what you feel like doing or what you've got time for / what you make time for. And how is that predictable? Your body doesn't even know when it's eating, what it's eating, with the setting it's eating in. It doesn't know what it's doing. Then dinner, you just end up ordering something random and getting a random thing. And you just end up being in this discomfort of you don't even know what your body's having and what you're putting into it. So of course it's going to be uncomfortable. Okay. Can you see how that level of chaos and that level of confusion and overwhelm actually makes it worse? And so many times people have this misconception that tracking your macros or whatever, or having a meal plan and things like that is restrictive or it's too controlling. And it's like, okay, but is restrictive and controlling in that way actually just consistent and organized, but you're just not willing to put in the effort to do that perhaps, which is often the case. Okay. So in order to bring back that safety and ease, we need to remove the chaos and we need to come back to our main pillars. Okay. Okay. So moving on from there, we know what the body needs. We know the way we need the body to feel safe. So how do we do that? We have a deeper understanding and education around food and around food sources. Okay. So essentially, this is something that all of my clients are required to know. And I had to educate myself on through university and all the things, but this is simple nutrition at its finest and the things that we need to know about our food. How are we all feeling? We're feeling good. We're not feeling too overwhelmed by me talking at 100 miles an hour. That coconut water is literally disappearing so quickly. Oh my goodness. I didn't even bring a coffee today. Like, I'm pretty impressed with myself. I mean, I've obviously had 2 coffees, but that's fine. Okay. So we're going into a bit of science. Okay. So I know science is boring, but you also came here to learn my Christo method. So get to know. Okay. The reason I bang on about the way of eating that I support my clients in doing, but I also follow, is because when I've seen it get so many results time after time. I've helped over 100 women do this, right? And myself, I've healed my own eating disorders. I've gotten myself from a place of having a horrible relationship with food and literally being in a cult. Like, guys, I actually shit you not, I was in a raw vegan cult. Like, ask my mum, fact check that shit. I was in a cult. Okay. I've gotten myself from being in a literal cult to now teaching about food and bringing it back to a simplest form by these methods. Okay. So essentially what I'm going to explain to you guys today is the science behind the elements in the food we eat and keeping it really simple and breaking it down. Because oftentimes you'll hear people on the internet, whether it's coaches, whether it's whatever, go, oh, track your macros and track your protein and this is carbs. And it's a bit loud. It's a bit like fucking in your face. It's a bit loud, especially if you don't know what is in it, what the reason for it is and what they are. So I'm literally bringing it right back into the basics today because this is simple nutritional education that is not taught and it needs to be taught. And I'm literally doing that. Okay, so getting straight into things here. When we look at a food source, we have what we call macronutrients. So macro meaning big and micronutrients meaning small. Okay, so in the macronutrients, these are the larger energy producing components of our food. So the things that produce energy, calories, kilojoules, whatever it is, okay? The things that make up our food. This includes carbohydrates, proteins, fats, fiber, and water. So essentially, they're the big mamas, like the big mamas. So if I'm going to look at a piece of pizza, I don't know why that's the example in my head at 9 in the morning. You can tell I'm fucking reverse dieting for my comp and my hunger is high. Let's look at a piece of pizza. Okay. We have our carbohydrate in this piece of pizza is our dough, the base. Okay. We have our protein. We have whatever's on the pizza. Let's say it's pepperoni or let's say it's chicken. I'm getting hungry. That's our protein. We have some fat in the pizza. There's going to be oil used in the cooking process. There's probably a little bit more fat in the meat, but there's probably going to be some cheese. Okay. We have our fiber. Now, obviously, pizza is not like a hella fiber source of food, but there would be some tomatoey paste in there and perhaps some vegetables on top. Or if it's a quality base, we might have some fiber in the base, okay? And then water, we have any water through the cooking process, like in the tomato paste, there was probably some water. There's a little bit of water, but water is almost separate. Just have a freaking glass of water next to your pizza, okay? They are the big mamas. You can see them. You can look at your pizza and see 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see your macronutrients, okay? On the flip side of that is our micronutrients. Now, these are so often overlooked because people think they don't matter. And this is huge in bodybuilding. Everyone thinks, oh, your macros, your macros, your macros. Just hit your macros, hit your macros, hit your macros. At the end of the day, if you're only hitting your macros and you're not hitting your micros, you're not absorbing anything from your macros. Our micronutrients are the little baby things, the smaller components of food that provide vitamins and minerals, okay? So thinking things like iron, zinc, magnesium, calcium, vitamin D, C, K, and E, etc. Okay, all of your minerals and vitamins. Now, these are the little girls, so you can't see these. They're in very, very small amounts. Think like milligrams rather than grams. Okay, they're teeny tiny. They're not all in every food. Okay, just as much as macros aren't, they're not all in every food. Some different food sources will have more than the others. Oftentimes we will see our micronutrients are the things we can become deficient in. We can become very deficient in certain vitamins and minerals if we are not prioritizing micronutrients. Now, I'm going to explain where you get micros and macros in a minute, but have a little think for yourself first of where that might be and what you can think of some micronutrient sources of food. Oftentimes it is completely overlooked because people will not be able to digest their macros, so their carbs, proteins, fats, and fibers, unless they have the micronutrients paired with it, okay? So both are equally as important. The micros are, if not more important, but the macros are the one that everyone puts the focus on, okay? So I'm going to move through a little faster here and explain these macronutrients to you, okay? So there's a lot of information on this page, obviously, because I'm teaching, obviously. But I wanted to give you guys a bit of a visual. Sometimes I do slides, sometimes I don't. I kind of don't like them, but this is life, guys. But I want to be really open and give you guys actually the building blocks here so you have something to read and visualize. And I would be taking notes for you, but there's going to be notes at the end of your masterclass provided to you. Okay. So, and for everyone on the recording, like take notes, like get your pen and paper out because you can pause this and you can write things down. Okay. So essentially, we're first going to be looking at the big mamas, our macronutrients, because we need to be able to understand what these are in order to incorporate our micronutrients in, okay? So as I said, we're talking carbs, protein, and fats first, then we'll go into fiber, water. Obviously, you guys know what water is. I'm not explaining water. Like, I'm literally not explaining water. I'm going through mine too fast though, okay? So let's start with our carbs, carbohydrates. Now, carbs, as you guys know, if you have been in my world, you know carbs are my favorite thing in the world. I could eat carbs all day. Actually, fun fact, I do eat carbs all day, primarily, especially as an athlete, I did. And I would still consider myself an athlete now. But carbohydrates are essentially what is going to provide our body and brain with fuel, okay? Providing the body and brain with energy through glucose, and it is usually plant-derived, so through ample fiber, okay? So, sorry, they provide ample fiber. Now, when we look at carbohydrates, not to be sciencey, but when they come into the body, they get absorbed and they go into glycose, okay? They go into glucose and they get converted into either glycogen and stored in the liver or that glucose moves through our body and creates ATP, which is energy, and energizes our body and brain, okay? So when we absorb carbohydrates, it is going to be the first source of energy for our brain and body, and we are going to be able to utilize it nice and quickly to energize us for whatever we're doing. Now, we have different sorts of carbohydrate sources, so either slow or fast-acting carbohydrate sources, and we want to utilize these throughout the day in different ways. So I know a lot of people who enrolled in this masterclass, and you guys watching, there are a lot of athletes in here, but also a lot of women who train in the gym, and I will call you an athlete because that is what you are. A lot of girls who lift in the gym, a lot of my clients, a lot of you who are very strong and want to be working out. I also have a lot of dancers in this masterclass enrollment. So I know that you are also an athlete, but you are more than an athlete. You're also an artist. And with that requires mental and physical cognition. Okay. So what we need to know first is that our slow acting carbohydrates, these are the ones we probably want to have further away from something like a workout or a performance, okay? They are not going to be important for you if you're about to go on stage or you're about to go into the gym. We cannot break them down fast enough to get the glucose into our body. So essentially, when we look at our slow carbs, we want these, let's say, at dinner time where we're about to go to sleep and they're going to knock us out and put us to sleep when we pop a melatonin with them. Perfect, okay? Maybe we want them for breakfast, for an early breakfast, if we're working at about, 10 o'clock, or we're going to do our ballet class at 10 o'clock. We don't want these close to the time we need the energy most because they take a long time to break down. And that is usually because, as we've got here, they have ample fiber in them, but they also have other vitamins and minerals and things like that that slow down the process. So our slow carbohydrates are things like rice, pasta, bread, sweet potato, pumpkin, okay? These are a little bit slower to digest, okay? When we look at our fast-acting carbohydrates, these are the ones that go into our bloodstream straight away, and they get us from A to B very quickly, okay? This is because they are primarily sugars, okay? And at the end of the day, all carbs are sugar, and they all get metabolized as sugar. So when everyone demonizes sugar, just remember, everything we put in our body pretty much turns into carbohydrates anyway, which is essentially sugar. So let's just relax on that whole thing, okay? These carbohydrate sources that are fast acting is what you want to have maybe 20 minutes to 60 to 20 minutes before your performance or before your training session or during your training session, okay? So that we can get that glucose to your brain and your body nice and quickly. And because it's in its simplest form usually, which is sugar, right? It's in its simplest form, it goes straight into glucose straight away. It doesn't have to break down any of the other stuff in the process. What this looks like is something like literally sugar, like lollies, okay? Our fruits and dried fruits and juices and things like that that are super easy to quickly absorb, okay? Carbohydrates essentially are going to be the thing that gets you through your day. And when you get that 3 o'clock crash in energy, it is usually going to be you're craving a carbohydrate or you're depleted and haven't had enough carbohydrates. So just keep that in mind, okay? Moving on from carbohydrates, again, do not demonize them. They're the best thing in the world, and they are more important for your recovery and your muscle development and everything else than probably your proteins, okay? But we move on to protein, okay? So is everyone getting carbs? Just drop me an emoji in the chat to make sure that you know what your carbs are, and I'm not talking too fast, okay? So moving on to your proteins. Now, proteins are the building blocks of your body, okay? The amino acids that repair, grow, and maintain muscle tissue, okay? And that's things like ligaments, tissue, all the things, bone, everything, okay? Think everything in your body is maintained, repaired, is able to grow with, and is able to recover by protein, okay? Now, protein is one of those things that in the industry nowadays and in just the freaking world is so glorified. Now, some people actually make protein a very safe food for themselves, right? Oh, let me check the chat. Pretzel, thanks. You dick. I love it. Okay, so proteins essentially are the things that are going to build your muscle, yes, but they're going to maintain it more than anything else. So if you are someone who gets injured often, or you get really sore often, or you're trying to put on new muscle tissue, protein is going to be very, very important for you. But also if someone going through a dieting phase and trying to lose body fat and things like that, protein is going to be the thing that maintains your muscle so we don't look like a wet freaking noodle, okay? Protein is essential for your digestion and for the repairing and maintenance of everything in your gut, but it is very, very important for your appetite, okay? What is often forgotten is that protein actually, when we eat protein sources, we burn approximately 30% of it. We actually burn through the process of eating it because protein is harder to break down than most, okay? It is harder to break down than our fats and our carbs. So our body actually goes through a lot of burning of calories while we are eating protein, which is great, essentially, but it means we need to eat more of it, okay? Protein is going to be very satiating because it does take so long to digest and it's a bigger process. It's very satiating for us. So it means that we are kept full and happy and good, okay? Without enough protein, we just actually look shit, and we know that, and I'm going to swear because it is relevant. We look shit, okay? You know, there's people you see and you're like, they're just like a bit like skinny fat. Like do you train, but do you eat? But what do you do? Like, what do you do? They are the ones who aren't eating enough protein, okay? Protein is an essential component, especially as we age, to ensure that our bones and our ligaments and everything is protected in our body, okay? Plus, protein tastes really good. Now, if you're a vegan vegetarian, you can be here. I freaking love you and I hold you in that, but you need to take a little bit more care with your protein sources to ensure that you are getting the right amount of protein and the right sorts of protein, because not all protein sources are the same, okay? Which I have put at the bottom, okay? So protein sources most easily found and absorbed in animal products, okay? It's most bioavailable, okay? Which means we can absorb it quicker than our other protein sources, because something like, let's say, a tofu or an edamame, like our vegan and vegetarian protein sources, which are incredible protein sources, they have a bit more fat and they have some fiber and they have some phytonutrients, and they have some things that make it a little bit harder to absorb, so the protein is not as readily available, okay? So most easily found and absorbed in things like chicken, fish, beef, milk, yogurt, and eggs, but is also available in plant-derived sources such as tofu, edamame, tempeh, and beans, okay? When we are, let's say, a vegan or vegetarian, so I'm here, if you are here, I'm here for you. When we are eating vegetarian-based diets, we just need to pair our proteins to make a complete source of protein, okay? Something like an edamame bean is not a complete source of protein because it does not have all of our essential amino acids. We need to make sure we hit all of those across our day. So if you're a vegetarian, vegan, DM me and I will tell you more about your amino acids and how to pair your foods, okay? Protein is everything. Protein, if you're getting into the gym, that is where we start, okay? Most people notoriously undereat on protein. And when we actually look at the health recommendations for women, I mean, everyone who enrolled in this masterclass said they were a woman. So when we look at the protein recommendations for a woman, especially a young woman, which is a majority of my demographic, most women undereat on protein, but the actual recommendations are very, very low because they're based on a very sedentary woman, not on someone who's trying to gain muscle tissue and go to the gym and actually repair muscle tissue and be an athlete, okay? So you got to remember, when you look at the daily recommendations, always bump it up more, okay? That's my professional advice, okay? Lastly, we go into fats. These are the delicious ones. These are the ones we all want to eat. We all love carbs, and like protein's fine, but like everyone's a little slut for an almond butter. Let's be real here, okay? But our fats are going to be the most dense energy source. So just flicking back for a second, carbs and protein are 4 calories per gram, okay? Fats are 9 calories per gram. So they are dense, okay? So we get 1 gram of fat and 1 gram of carb. This one is going to take us, it's going to be a lot less filling, really, because we're having less of it, but it's higher in our calories, okay? But it does fill us up over time, which is great. So they provide a very dense source of energy and are an essential component of cell production and hormone health, alongside brain function through omega-3s, and lowers LDL, which is cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, okay? Best are poly and mono unsaturated fats. Okay, we want to be avoiding things like saturated fats that's like in your macas. We don't want to have that all the time. You can have a cheeky macas, but let's avoid your saturated fats and your trans fats, because obviously they are very, very, very bad for you. Okay, so always look at the back of your packet. Make sure your saturated fats are a little lower. Okay, even things like coconut oil and things like that have a lot of saturated fat, which isn't bad for us, but we just need to be mindful of the type of fat we are absorbing. Okay. I literally run 1,000,000 miles an hour, don't I, guys? You can tell I'm passionate about food. Okay, so when we talk about fats, okay, oftentimes I do see as well in the industry, fats become demonized. People reject fats because they go, fats make you fat, which is just the most bullshit fucking shit I've ever heard. Like, that is like a moment of swearing for me, but oh my goodness, like, it's just bullshit. Fats will not make you fat. If you overeat on anything, it's going to make you gain weight and maybe be an undesirable weight for what you want to look like. That's your problem, okay? It's not the fat that's the problem. Fats are essential for our brain health and cognition and our focus, okay, alongside our hormones. They're an essential component of our actual hormones, okay? So it is essential that if we are not getting enough fat in the diet and we don't have enough body fat, our hormones will never be properly producing and we will never be supported by them, okay? This is then going to recur over to brittle bones and, you know, a high chance of you being osteoarthritic or osteoporotic. And for myself, I have osteoarthritis from my knees down due to years of poor nutrition and high impact activity. That is toxic. I'm literally like an 80-year-old from the knee down, but we're working on it because my brain is healthy with beautiful fats now, okay? So when we are consuming fats, we just need to be mindful that they're not going to fill us up. Like look at a teaspoon of peanut butter and then look at a piece of bread. They're pretty much the same calories. Which one is going to fill you up more? Probably the one that has more volume, correct? The bigger one, right? But we can tend to overeat on our fats because they're so delicious, but they also don't make us full straight away. Fats take a very, very long time for the body to break down because they are so dense, but that also allows us to be what we call satiated, meaning that our appetite lasts throughout the day, which is great, okay? We can actually sustain our energy and not be thinking about food because we feel satiated and complete from our fats. If we do not have fat in a meal, you will feel it. If you go and have a meal and you don't have any sort of fat in it, you will feel like crap for the rest of the day, okay? Most common in things like our poly and monounsaturated fats are most common in things like olive oil, nuts, seeds, and dairy products, okay? Obviously, our good quality fats can be in things like dark chocolate, coconut oil, ghee, clarified butter, a full fat yogurt, full cream milk, all of those things, egg yolks, all the things. Our not so ideal sources of fats are going to come from things like your macas, your canola oils, your rank sort of cheeses, like I hate that shit anyway, all that sort of stuff. Your body's not going to feel good for it, but we can eat it from time to time. We all eat it from time to time. We just want to be aware that those meals are quite high in fat and therefore higher in calories, right? Okay, brilliant. So moving on here, we've got our carbs, our protein, our fat. We understand the components of all our food. So to give you an example of a meal that has carbs, protein, and fat in it, if we take a classic Lucy Christodoulou meal of chicken, rice, and broccolini, okay, where is my fat in that? In prep, I probably didn't have any, but that's because it's high in calories. Now I have avocado or almond butter or something. So that would be my fat. My chicken would clearly be my protein source. My carbohydrate would be from my rice. My fiber would be from my vegetables and a little bit of carbohydrate. Okay. So that is a very simple way to just look at a meal. If you look at some eggs on toast, we would go, okay, grabbing, 2 pieces of toast. We've got our carbohydrates. If we have 2 eggs on there, we have some protein in our egg yolks. We have some fat, and then we have our avocado for some fat as well. Brilliant. That's a very balanced meal. Okay, let's move on. Just give me an emoji in the chat of how you're feeling. I just need to grab a drink of water because I'm just like dying over here. Are we feeling educated? If you can find like a protein or fat emoji, I'm going to be obsessed. Okay, I am moving on. So you can find your emojis. I'm just powering through because I appreciate you guys being here so much. And I know we've all got stuff to do in our lives and you are educating fast and efficient, just like the way we eat. Okay. So lastly, I'm going to touch very briefly on macros and fiber. Not that they're less important, but for the context of today's masterclass, it is not about giving you a step-by-step rundown of how to eat your vitamins. Okay. That just takes 10,000 fucking hours. Okay. Just be a client of mine. It's pretty simple. Okay. So fiber is essential in our diet. Now, fiber is often overlooked. It is becoming more and more popular these days. Okay. Brooke. I love it. I love it. The emoji choices are just spectacular. Now, fiber is something that is becoming more and more important these days and more research. And it is something that as an athlete, perhaps is not super, super important for you. Love it, Emma. Incredible. It is not super important for you because you need carbohydrates more than you need fiber, right? For the average Joe or for the gym girly trying to get into a bit of a cut or anything like that, fiber is so important for our satiation and our digestion. But for everyone, fiber is an essential compound for our gut and heart health alongside the satiation that I'm speaking to, okay? Now, when I look at fiber, my brain instantly goes to fruits and vegetables, but it's also in grain products and it can be in other little things like the skin on like nuts and seeds and stuff like that. Fiber is an incredible source of micronutrients, okay? But essentially our fiber adds a lot of really, really good bacteria to our gut, okay? Through breaking down our fibers, we actually cannot digest them, okay? So our fiber is insoluble for the most part. We have soluble and insoluble fiber, but we cannot digest it. So that means it actually bulks out our stool. So I'm not going to talk about like stool right now because I'm literally not having like a poo discussion, but like we're there. When we do not eat enough fiber, our bowel movements will just be shocking because we don't have any bulk or weight to our stool because we're absorbing everything and nothing is staying behind. So our fiber is the part that gives us bulk to our stool and actually allows us to have very healthy bowel movements. Fiber adds really, really great bacteria to the gut and actually adds a diversity. And in our gut, we have this, think of it like a little community. It's called the microbiome. Okay. It's a little community in our gut. I'm like touching my gut as I do this. And it's having a little party down there. And we all know that if we are like farting or gassy or bloated or constipated or diarrhea, there's something going on in the gut, okay? Usually that's because of a lack of or too much fiber, or our microbiome, our little happy community in the gut, is not happy because we aren't feeding it, okay? We've either gotten some bad bacteria in there or we haven't fed the good bacteria, okay? This isn't a gut masterclass. I can do one of those, but for now, just know fiber is essential for your gut. It's essential for your heart because it lowers cholesterol. So even though you guys, we don't need to be thinking about these things yet because we're young and bloody whatever, it all is relevant. I had heart issues at 16. Like it all is relevant, okay? As I said, our most common sources are grains, veggies, and fruits. So it's actually usually in the skin. If we look at something like a banana, it doesn't have that much fiber in it because it's quite heavy in carbohydrates. But if I look at something like broccoli, it's got so much fiber in it because you can feel how rough it is, right? It's really rough. And when you chew it, you've really got to break it down. And that is because we're breaking down the fiber. Okay, so fiber is incredible. Add your veggies, add your fruits. The easiest way to get fiber into the diet is to add a color to your plate. Just go look at your plate and add a color. Okay, is that making sense? If you can find a fiber emoji, absolute slay for you today. This Barbie eats fiber. Last thing here is micronutrients. Okay, so thank you guys for your focus. You're all incredible. All of the vitamins and minerals in our body needed to carry out its functions and to thrive are coming from our micronutrients. So as I explained before, these are going to be all of the little things, our iron, our vitamin D, our vitamin K, our magnesium, our like everything. Think everything comes from color. Micronutrients are found, yes, in our grains and in our meats, a little bit, not much. Our micronutrients, for the most part, are going to be found in our veggies and our fruits, okay? Obviously, you can get like calcium from your dairy, and you're going to get, different sorts of things from your meats and your fish, and, you're going to get all those things. But for the most part, we really want to be prioritizing whole nutrient-dense foods, such as fruit, vegetables, and grains, okay? Alongside these legumes, meats, fish, and dairy, okay? These micronutrients are essential for our digestion. They're essential for our energy. They're essential for our skin and our hair and just our general thriving as a human being. So please never neglect your micronutrients because they matter more than anything else, okay? If you are not eating them and you are not absorbing them, you're never going to absorb your macros, okay? I'm excited for this emoji right now. Slay, bro, slay. Kiwi fruit emoji was very relevant. And you know what? I was going to use kiwi fruit as an incredible example because obviously kiwi fruit has a shit ton of micronutrients in it. Like, look at the color of a kiwi fruit. How could that not be good for you? Like, literally, how could that not be good for you? But you can see in that skin, if you're someone like me, I eat the skin of kiwi fruit. One, I'm a bit lazy with food because like simplicity, but I will eat the skin on a kiwi fruit and it has incredible fiber in it. And so many nutrients, right? But a kiwi fruit, you can see the hydration in the kiwi fruit. There's water, there's seeds, that's fiber in there. The seeds of the fiber in there. It's so incredibly hydrating. And then the sugary sweet bit is your carbohydrate. What an elite food source. Why are we not eating more of those? Okay. Oh my gosh, did you guys see that animation? Guys, I didn't know I could animate things. This is incredible. Okay, so the way that we want to look at the food, we've got about 15 minutes left, guys, max. The way we want to look at food is to simplify our food by just adding those things I've just taught you and putting one. Easy. Okay. So when we look at our pie chart over to the left, I have a simplified meal breakdown. Now, this is for someone, okay, who is going to the gym or does some sort of exercise or is a dancer or whatever it is. Okay. Someone with physique and performance goals who wants to feel good, look good, and everything. Now, the the ratios would be different. If I had someone who was sedentary, couldn't do anything all day, didn't do any exercise, and just wanted to lose weight, I couldn't possibly give them the same ratios. So this is assuming the demographic that you guys all really, really respect your bodies, you want to move your bodies, and you care about your energy, you care about your life, and you're willing to put in so much energy and attention to the way you eat in order to make it easy and thriving, okay? So when I look at this meal breakdown, I want you to picture this pie chart as your plate, okay? Our protein should take up around 30% of our plate, or a palm-sized portion, to keep it really simple, okay? Fats can take up about 20% of our plate, and the rest should be made up of carbohydrates and fiber. The way that I would adjust the carbohydrate and fiber ratio is based on your goals. If your goals are to be building muscle and improving your energy, improving your, let's say, digestion, gaining weight perhaps, or, you know, your performance goals, you need energy for your performance. You're trying to lift heavier in the gym. You're trying to improve your physique. You're trying to do all these things. I would be leaning towards, let's say, 40% carbohydrate and 10% fiber. Because why? We want those carbohydrates because they're going to be fueling us. They provide us more energy than the fiber, and they are going to give us most bang for our buck. If you are someone who perhaps I can't get to the gym as much, or we're trying to improve your relationship with food from a place of overeating to back down to a regular spot, or let's say you're going out for a meal that day and you're trying to save some carbs, or any of the things, okay, you're trying to be in a calorie deficit, you're trying to lose weight, I would be stretching your carbohydrate portion out to about 30% and your carbs to about 20. Now, in both carbs and fiber, you're going to have a little bit of the other. So it just takes getting to know your food sources in order to make that adjustment. The fiber is going to fill you up for a majority between your meals. Okay. So that is why we want to be utilizing that in a dieting phase so that we can stay nice and full. Okay. So in order to determine your ideal meal, you need to break down into carb, protein, fat, and fiber. It's so simple. When we think, oh my God, what am I going to have for dinner tonight? It's like, oh, well, I don't even know what to put in this pasta. I don't even know. Okay, well, what would I do? I've got my carb, the pasta. I've got my fat, the pesto. I've got my chicken, the protein, got my broccoli and my tomatoes, the fiber. That took me like sub 3 seconds, like literally sub 3 seconds. So that is how easy it gets to be when you make a meal. Okay. It also gives you flexibility to try lots of different meals because you don't overcomplicate it, because you just look at the basics of what you need and then you just construct it, okay? An example of how I would structure a meal would be something like this. 1 fillet of salmon, that's going to cross over your protein and your fat, but mostly your protein. 1 cup of cooked rice, that can go in my fiber. 1 cup of grilled broccolini, that can go in my fiber and carbs. And then 1/4 of an avocado, that would go in my fat, and it's got a little fiber. So whilst all food sources will have little bits of the other, right? Even if it's 1 gram, they will have little bits of the other. We want to look at the majority. Salmon is primarily a protein source, but it's got some really good healthy fats in it. So it can cross over both, right? But I'm never going to put salmon as my fat source. Carbs, okay, rice, incredible source of carbs. So is broccolini. It's got carbs in it, but it's more my fiber, right? Because it's so crunchy and I've got to break that shit down with my fucking back teeth. I don't know where I was going with that. And our fats, our avocado, okay? Yes, of course, there's a little bit of carbohydrate in, well, through the fiber in our avocado. I'm never going to say avocado's a carbohydrate source. So it just takes getting to know your food a little bit more and getting very educated on food, okay? Luckily for you, in your handout that you're going to get after the masterclass that will be emailed to you all, there is a breakdown of all of my favorite sources of carbs, protein, fats, and fiber, and how I would construct a meal alongside lots of activities for you guys to do. Okay. So last but not least, I'm going to speak to the energetic side of food that I find really important. And these are my Christo pillars of food. Okay. We've done all the educating. Well done. Thank you for staying with me for my nutrition lecture today. Incredible work. We've done all the educating and we've realized how simple it gets to be. When we actually just look at those 4 components of our food, we know we're getting everything we need. We know that we're going to be taken care of. Our digestion is going to be good. Our energy is going to be good. We're going to be clear. We're going to be performing well. We're going to succeed. And we're not complicating and confusing food because we're just making a balanced fucking meal. Okay. So lastly, I'm going to run through these briefly and then you have some homework activities on these. But these are my pillars of nutrition. And these are the things that I find are so important about nutrition and vital to someone's nutritional health, okay, and longevity. So digestibility, frequency, simplicity, purpose, and balance. I'm going to give you a moment to write those 5 things down. If you can write them down in your pen and paper, that would be incredible. Or if you could put them down in your phone, that would be great also. Just give me a thumbs up when you're done. I love that the chat is just like fucking steak emojis. You guys are just a slay. Digestibility, frequency, simplicity, purpose, and balance. Okay, so I'm going to start with digestibility. First thing with digestibility is we need to have food that digests well for us, or else we are going to feel like trash all day. If you are bloated, if you are constipated, if you have diarrhea, if you are cramping, if you have gas and you're literally farting your way through the day, how on earth do you expect to feel good? You're not going to. You're not going to. If we are not digesting our food, we are not absorbing anything from it, and we're not taking anything from it. In order to actually get the nutrients out of our food, we need to be digesting them. We all know no one looks cute and snatched and is feeling good when their freaking leggings are digging into their stomach and they are literally bloated 6 months pregnant over them. It doesn't work. So when I look at my food sources and my clients' food sources, the first thing I address is how well does this digest? Okay. Everyone digests different foods differently. Everyone's going to have little different intolerances and things they can't digest well. We all have different enzymes that break down different things. That is fine. But you need to find what digests well for you. What makes you feel good? Okay. How does it make you feel? Are you bloated and gassy, or are you tight and light? If you feel good, you will look good. So first thing you need to come to is this food digesting well for me? If you're someone who's struggling with your digestion at the moment, I would take inventory. I would have a food diary. And when you're eating your foods, I would go, okay, when did I start to feel bloated in that day? What did I have before that? And try and line it up. Okay. Second from digestibility as a pillar of nutrition is frequency. What is the frequency of my food? Now, this is speaking to the energetics of food. So you guys know I'm all about the energetics, but there is purpose to this. Okay. So just bear with me with the woo-woo. What is this food communicating to the cells and energy in my body? Is it clean and high frequency, meaning it's high vibe from the earth, or does it scream junk and low quality? Okay. So when we look at a beautiful punnet of raspberries, and then we look at like a cheeseburger, let's just do a cheeseburger. I'm not shaming cheeseburgers, like you do you, but let's just look at the two. These raspberries are screaming to me communication from the earth. They're screaming to me nutrients. They're screaming to me the love and care taken to bring these raspberries to me. They're screaming to me air and water and light. They're screaming to me connection. They're screaming to me health. They're screaming to me vitality. They're screaming high fucking vibe. When I look at something like a cheeseburger, it's screaming to me processed. It's screaming to me oily. It's screaming to me not going to make me feel good. It's screaming to me, no one really cared about putting energy into this. It's screaming to me, bulk producer, mass made. It's not screaming high vibe. Like, I don't feel like I'm going to be meditating with the Buddha after eating a cheeseburger, but the raspberries are getting me there. Okay. So I really want you guys, I know it's like a bit woo-woo, but I really want you to think about the frequency of your food. Does it feel good after you eat a cheeseburger? No. Does it feel good after you eat a punnet of raspberries? Oh, hell fucking yeah, it does. That is because of the frequency of the food, not just what's in it, but what it's communicating to your body, and also what it's telling you about yourself. If you eat a cheeseburger, it's not a very high frequency thing to do, because you're going to yourself, oh, I don't really care that much about my health and my body and everything today. I'm just going to eat the cheeseburger. It's not very high vibe. Okay. Simplicity. How much time does this take me to cook? How much effort and prep work is required? How can I always ensure this stays simple so I stay consistent? Simple. Literally, no pun intended. When we look at a pillar of nutrition, simplicity is the only thing that's going to keep us consistent. If it's not simple and it's complicated, you're never going to stick to it, because we have to think about it. We only have so much time in the day. We only all have so much brain power in the day to think about things that are irrelevant to, let's say, our work and our relationships and things like that. Food often comes last for a lot of people. Food goes on the back burner. So if it's complicated and confusing, it's going to be shit. Okay. If we can make it simple, you're going to stick to it. Okay. What is the purpose of the food? Purpose. Why am I actually eating this food? What is it doing for my body, my goals, my health, my brain, and my focus? If we don't know the purpose behind the food we eat, we are unconsciously eating it, and we are actually being very careless and avoidant. It's actually quite avoidant. If we do not know, okay, I'm eating this food because it actually just tastes really, really good. Okay, that's fine. At least you know your purpose. You're not trying to fool yourself. Oh, I'm eating this food because it makes me feel really good. It energizes me for my workout. Brilliant. I'm drinking this margarita because it's making me have a lot of fun with my friends. Brilliant. But it's when we go, no, it's what the purpose is, but you don't want to see that. Okay. And then we get into shame and guilt, and that's a whole nother masterclass. But for this masterclass, what is the purpose of the food you are eating? Is it serving a purpose? Food all has a purpose, either to fuel you or it's going to harm you. So is it serving the right purpose for you? And last but not least, balance. Does this bring balance and freedom to my life? Am I balancing health with pleasure? A lot of the time we neglect balance because we go, okay, if I'm going on a health and fitness journey, I've got to go balls to the wall, all in, go fully there. No, you don't. There's such a thing as balance. And something that strict is always going to have a flip side. I did my prep because at the end of prep, it stops and you don't do it anymore. Okay, we do a diet, so it stops and you don't do it anymore. We do an off season, a bulk, so it stops and you don't do it anymore. We all need balance and we all need different phases and seasons of our life. But no one should have to do one or the other. That is black and white thinking. A lot of the time we think we can't have any structure and we can only indulge, and that's how we're going to feel good and enjoy our lives. That is not balance. Or we think we can only be restrictive and only eat on plan and and we can't enjoy life. That is not balance. That is not enjoying life. Balance is the key pillar above all of these. And if we have balance, we can have purpose, simplicity, frequency, and digestibility. If we have all of those, we get to have balance in our diet because we know why we're eating it. We're really real with ourselves. We're keeping it easy. We're digesting it and we get to feel good. And that is a balanced way of living. Okay. So they are my 5 pillars of nutrition of why I find people go off with nutrition, but the things that we always need to anchor back into. So last page, integration, how to bring this into your life. My super, super simple things here. Okay. So if you do not know your calories and you're wanting to calculate your calories, depending on your age and depending on where you're at in life, begin with the Harris-Benedict calculator for estimating your maintenance calories and begin tracking what you are currently eating to gauge an estimate on where you're currently at. So this is a really great calculator. This is the gold standard of calculating nutrition. Whilst these calculators are a little inaccurate, as they always are, it is the best shot we have, okay? With a coach, obviously, I calculate your calories and I do all that work for you. But just to find your maintenance calories and understand what it takes to maintain your weight and maintain your muscle and maintain your health throughout a week, you need to know what your current maintenance calories are. So get an estimate, but then ignore that and track on a MyFitnessPal app, just starting to add food by food by food. It's literally grade 2 maths. Let's not forget this, guys. It's grade 2 maths. It's not complicated. Add in your foods and see where you're currently at and if you are eating at your maintenance predicted or if you're under it or if you're above it, and then you'll see why maybe you're gaining, losing, or maintaining your weight. Begin aiming for over 80 to 100 grams of protein per day. If you are eating any less than that, depends on your age and size, but I would just rule of thumb recommend eating that much because you're going to notice you start to feel really good and perform way better. Start by tracking calories before anything else, and then protein, and then fiber, then your carbs and fat. This is a method I use with my clients. We do 2 weeks of calories, 1 week of protein, 1 week of protein, fiber, and then we go into carbs and fats as well so that we don't overcomplicate the brain when we're first trying to do it and you end up hating it and resenting it because you make it hard when it's actually just maths, okay? Build the meal method as I did before. Okay, so making that pie chart whenever you get stuck and going, this is going to be my meals for the week. I would be planning out your meals at the start of the week and going, how am I going to eat this week? What is my method for eating? Okay, I'm going to have this for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I've planned out my carbs, my proteins and fats. This is my meals. And when you're doing your groceries, I would recommend looking at 3 sources of each. Okay, so 3 carb sources, 3 protein sources, 3 fat sources, and 3 fiber sources. And knowing that in all those fiber and carb sources, you're probably going to be getting a majority of your micronutrients. So you're good. And then you have 3 meals there that you can mix and match. If one night you want chicken and sweet potato, you can have that. But then the next day you can have your chicken with your rice that you've already cooked and you're good. Okay. So they are my tips for integration. That is how I like to integrate when a client first starts with me. And that is my way of doing things. So yeah, that is it, guys. That is my way of eating. That is my way of teaching food. That is what I recommend. And that is what I love. So thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it, guys. And anyone watching the recording, I know there's so many of you. So please send me a DM. Let me know if you have any questions, if anything confused you, but it should have been pretty simple. If you follow this method, it's a surefire way to success with your food and nutrition and actually not hating food and becoming very empowered and educated around food, because you guys have just learned what it takes a lot of people to learn and you've learned it in under an hour. So that is incredible. Your brains are probably imploding right now. My voice is dying because I need my coconut water, but I'm so, so grateful for you all and proud of you all. If you ever want any further help and advice, please just contact me on Christo Coaching or Beyond the Bar. and I am more than happy to help you. Okay. Thank you so much, guys. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.